I'd like to start our second video in this series about writing and editing transfer pricing reports and talk about the whole issue of readability. Readability is so important because you want to make it easy for your reader to understand the argument you're making. And if you don't make an effort to make it very easily read, if it's not very readable, they may not find the facts that you're hoping they're going to find and follow the logic that you're trying to present. So, much of what we write is actually technically correct. We don't tend to make errors in grammar or usage. We get that right. But our sentence structures and our paragraph structures are often very difficult to read. So it's not an issue of saying something being technically wrong versus readable. It can be absolutely correct from a grammar point of view, but it can be very difficult to read. And I think in transfer pricing, we need to think about a couple of things that are working that aren't necessarily the case in a lot of writing that you do. One of which is the fact that many of the people who might need to read this report are not going to be native speakers of the language that you're writing in, because it is transfer pricing and it is an international transaction more often than not. And the person on the other side of this transaction, the related party and their tax director who's working on this, English may not be their first language. I know I'm presenting this whole course in terms of English, but that's always going to be the case, that we have a high probability that a reader is not going to be reading in their native tongue. And one of the things to keep in mind is that readers may not be willing to carefully decipher what was written. If they're not well motivated to pour a lot of time and energy into reading it, they may not draw the same conclusions you draw. Now, while a tax director might be quite motivated, the tax authority in his jurisdiction may not be. And therefore, we have to make it easy for people to get to the information they need. And if you need to sort of relate to this on a personal level, think about how you feel when you're trying to assemble something and the instruction sheet is just horribly written and you can't seem to follow it at all. The same thing can be true of a transfer pricing argument. If it's badly constructed, it can be very frustrating for the reader. So, how do we measure readability? Well, there is a science to this, and in fact, within Microsoft Word, when you do your spelling and grammar check, you can display also the reading level of the document, or a readability score. And this can be very helpful because I feel if you don't measure something, you're not going to be able to tell whether you're getting better at it. So there are two scores that come up. One is called the Flesch Reading Ease score, and the other is the Flesch-Kincaid grade level score. And we'll talk about them in great detail if you want to, though. If you go to Microsoft Word and you click on Help and you put in these search terms, you can find a whole background as to what goes into these. But frankly, the key issue here is that they are based upon research analyses that link the readability to two primary variables: the average sentence length and the average number of syllables per word. Now, I don't really want to get far into a vocabulary issue, so I'm going to leave the average syllables per word aside, but really focus on average sentence length, because that is something that we can do an awful lot about, and we can do it fairly easily. Now, I want to talk about how do you turn this option on, because it's an option within Word, and if you don't turn it on, you're not going to get these scores. So, quickly, how to turn on the readability score in Microsoft Word. You go to the File tab, which brings up this page, and I'm working from the most recent version of Microsoft Word, and go down and you'll see Options. If you click on that Options, it will bring up a screen that looks like this. The third item down is Proofing, so you select on that, and this window is what will appear. And if you notice down here where it says the correcting spelling and grammar in Word, one of the options there is Show the Readability Statistics. So you make sure that box is checked. And once that box is checked, then this is all turned on. When you run your review for grammar and spell check, which I encourage you to run on everything that you're giving to someone else to read. Notice I didn't say client, someone else. If you're giving it to your manager, if the manager is giving it to a partner, they should run that spell check, that grammar check, to catch any small errors. After you go through the whole document and, again, fix all the problems or say ignore because you think that it's appropriate the way it is, this window will come up at the end. And this window, as you can see, the last two items are the Read Ease score and the grade level score. I'm going to talk about more of that in our third video.